is here and is ready. For those who are here, I just want to ask that we get our videos on so I know who we're talking to. Welcome to everyone who's here. Welcome to the panelists. It is so good to be here. I hope everybody knows that this is a fireside chat and has prepared accordingly, such as myself as I sip this drink. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Hi, Dedo. Hi, Caroline. Good to see you guys. How are we doing this evening? Or what time is it? I actually don't know where most of you guys are.
I think we might all be in the same time zone and probably in the same country and probably in the same city.
Since the session is unplugged, it's already 5:03 Manchester time. We're in Dar. Dedo is visiting Dar.
Nice.
So we are in Dar.
Awesome. Welcome. How are you finding it?
I love it. I love Dar. I think it's the city of the future. If you're looking at what the region offers, right? There's a burgeoning energy. There's a new excitement. The trend is your friend, my friend.
Oh my gosh, guys, please, if you guys have Twitter, you need to start quoting these things. This guy is already dropping things here. He's already dropping gold. Welcome so much. Welcome to Tanzania. Welcome to the session. Caroline, I've not seen you in ages. I know you used to be in Arusha. We've not seen each other. How have you been? How is that for you?
I've been great. Yes, I was in Arusha. Be right back. I came to cut the bag of the city of the future, inspired, energized. Right outside me, I see the ocean, serene and cool. Somehow climate change is playing a good number on cities like that, because this time around, it used to be so hot, but I think the weather is really sort of like improving. Basically, it's bearable for a Chuganian girl. So.
Yeah, when you say bearable, I'm like, define bearable here. We were having like 12 degrees here in the morning. Oh my gosh, welcome guys. I also want to welcome Lydia. Hi Lydia, how are you? You're on mute. I love this word. The year has been on mute.
That's really good. I'm not sure if you can hear. My internet is really unstable.
I think I can hear you fine.
Okay.
And where are you based at, Lydia?
So I am from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania.
Nice. I swear, my Dar people. Am I the only one in Arusha? Oh my goodness. Welcome guys, welcome to the people who've been able to make it. Today we are going to be talking about the realities of funding for youth-led organizations in Tanzania. Guys, we love talking about money. We hate how difficult it is to get it. We love that we're able to have access to people like Siegel, who are able to really talk the realities, really talk the real talk about why this money is difficult. How are we able to get ourselves better? Is the problem here? Is the problem us? Is the problem them? Is the problem out there? What is the problem? We are going to be very real. We're going to be very open. It's going to be fun yet serious. So yeah, we can just begin from there. Maybe just to so people are aware of, because I think I know the people. I know the panelists. If each of you can just explain a little bit about what you do, yeah, that. So we can start. In my screen here, I'm seeing Dedo starts first. So maybe we can start with you.
I'm Dedo Enba. I'm the Director of Strategy at Segal Family Foundation. My work is, on one hand, to work with our team on how we roll out our strategy. Second is to connect the dots between our work with other like-minded funders and social entrepreneurs and possibly government, because change brings change and our sector requires some sort of really intentional collaboration to make change stick. And the last piece around my work is to anticipate the problem or the solutions rather of the future, and then how our organizations and the people that we work with can sort of position ourselves in the midst of all that to continue to deliver with the future thinking and where the sector is at. I'm extremely thrilled to be with you again, Ellen, and to meet you, Lydia, at this platform offered by the Tanzania Digital Network and Platform.
Nice. Dedo, one of the things that I know about you that I've heard everywhere, you are the ultimate social butterfly. And I have seen your dance moves. I have seen so many things. You know, I like, maybe give us maybe like 3 things that you enjoy doing outside of Seagull, because I feel like there are thousands. I want you to just name 3.
You are outing me before 6 p.m., but you'll be forgiven. Yes,
came for me.
Yes, the next place that you'll find me other than at work will be at the dance floor to keep it sanitized. And I'm a avid lover of cheese and wine. And when I'm not working, I'm really out talking to the most people as possible. CK talked about having FOMO in the previous session we were on. And if there's one thing that used to characterize me before COVID was FOMO, that made me leave the party the last. So which means I had the juice of the party.
Oh my gosh. I say overcoming FOMO is so hard. I generally have it with things like events, things like, yeah, it is so difficult. So like, I'm looking to how you've developed it, because it's still a struggle. It's still a struggle. Thank you so much.
But the pandemic has helped. The pandemic has helped. It was not for my own doing.
I think what happened for me is that I just switched. It's like I had every Zoom link in section. It was awful, I tell you.
Well done.
We'll be saved. Okay, next up for me is Carol. Carol, how are you? Tell us what you do at Seagull.
Niko poa. So fun fact about this call, it's at 5 p.m. And for me, this is where my English sometimes signs off. And then I go back to my Chuganian vibe. So I'm glad this is an unplugged session. My purpose was to have something cooler than this small glass of water. But anyway, we'll make with what we have. Yeah, so my name is Caroline Kandusi. You can also call me CK. I work with Seagull Family Foundation as their programs officer, based out of Tanzania. My co-work is basically to support foundation strategy of Tanzania as we purpose to unlock opportunities for visionary leaders who are doing awesome work in different spaces by providing capital, spaces for communing and convenings, which can foster creative collaboration, but also work hand in hand with our partners to strengthen their capacities as organizations. Because it takes a strong organization to really deliver a strong mission. So that is my co-work. And my highlight of the day is basically just, being able to grow possibilities for, reaching out to more spaces, reaching out to more social entrepreneurs. So yeah, really happy to be here today.
Awesome. Welcome so much. I remember when we were like, it was more common for us to meet. I know one of the things that you really like, I know you really like nice accessories. I know you're a fan of accessories. I want you to name me 3 of your most favorite accessories that you have.
Accessories. All right, what do I have? So
that are your favorite. They can be there, they can be.
Yes, I have 2 right here, right now. And so when next time a person meets me with that, don't make a bad comment about it. that can carry my whole life. Oh gosh.
Oh my gosh.
So find me a beautiful leather bag in Burgundy, or like, you know, this army shade or something like that. It's like, yeah, I always have it. Like I love to have my life in one bag. So that could be a very great gift for me.
This is a fun fact to everyone that I'm going to like out you on. When I think the third time I met Caroline, she bought my bag for me on the spot. She didn't even bargain for it. It was leather. And she just, I was like, this is why I was like, this girl in accessories, do not miss.
And my recently, it's a recent ad, and it's also my favorite. It's a neck chain that has like infinity sign. Like, I just love infinity. If one day I become bold enough to put a tattoo on my body, it's going to be like the sign of infinity, and that day may never happen. So when I got that chain, I want rings, I want everything in infinity. So I'm so happy to have received it from my best friend. And the third one is the ring I'm wearing. For a very long time, I was a no rings girl until when I found this, and like me and it, we are together for a very, very, very long time.
I see this love. I see this love. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Lydia, talk to us about yourself, what you do.
All right, so my name is Lydia Charles Moyo. I am a young woman leader feminist. I am a communication strategist. What I do is I work around making sure young women and girls are financially resilient, but also are digitally included. So currently I work as the executive director for the Haya Initiative organization. We work to address economic rights and justice for young women. Our work revolves around making sure that young women are able to generate income, but participate in the national and global economy. So I love doing and working with young women. My vision is to really make sure every young woman and girl I meet is not really limited to unleash her full potential simply because she's not able to access knowledge, skills, or resources. So those are some of the things that really pin me on and make me really sad. So I don't want to be sad. That's why I do my work, because I want to see young women happy. I want to see young women successful. I want to see young women, you know, unleashing their potential, their talents, and, you know, yeah. So that's all about me.
Lydia, when I grow up, I want to be like you. Okay. Oh, I have aspirations. I have goals. My life is made. We can go home, people. I'm done. Lydia, tell us something about yourself that maybe, I don't know. Let me think. Something that you feel like a lot of people look at you and like, this girl is weird. This girl is weird. What is going with this person? What is happening? What's wrong? But you just love, you cannot help it. It is you. I can tell you own everything about you. What is it? Let us know.
Wow, I'm shocked. I don't even know what's that.
Let's say that I'm glad I was not asked that question.
They have reason. We were starting small for a reason.
Oh, one thing that people think I'm weird. Oh, wow. I don't know. I don't know, really. I will think about it, and maybe before the session ends, I'll have an answer. Like, but right now, I really can't think of anything.
I don't forget easier. I don't forget. I will come for you. I will come for you.
All right.
I still do wanna like continue having this conversation with you, and I think, you know, it's like we can just go straight into it. Lydia, you wrote a letter.
Yeah.
An open letter. Have you read it, guys? Have you seen it? She wrote a letter. Tell us.
It gives me goosebumps. Yes, it gives me goosebumps. And it wasn't that long that the new era has come, you know, where people honestly took the power, and that it has.
But for the sake of the people who are, you know, attending this fireside chat, I want to say that it has been fire. It's a gospel. It's the gospel for this sector, actually. So tell us about like the experience that really made you want to do this.
Okay, so my letter is something that when someone tells me about my letter, I'm like, whoa, I want to hide myself. Sometimes I want to stand up boldly and talk about it. It's just a mixture of feelings. But it's a letter that I've been thinking. Actually, I wasn't even thinking about a letter, but it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And it was burning me inside because I am going through that. And it reached a point when I was like, okay, if I can't even get what I want, at least let me share. And being a voice, not just for me, but for the people like me who are experiencing the same thing. So I lead a young women-led organization that I'm very, very passionate about. I mean, for people who know me, they know that I am very passionate with what I do. It really doesn't matter what I get out of it, but it just makes me happy and it gives me a lot of peace. So for years, I've been trying to build it and, you know, making it out there, but I've not really been able to really see it grow the way I want it to be. And one of the main reasons is because we don't have enough resources, but we are very driven. The young people are very driven, energetic, passionate, and we know what we are doing. So for years, we've been asking ourselves, why are we really not getting the support that we need? And there are many reasons, you know, that could justify why we're not getting the resources. But for me, it was like, can we really just pass on this stage and wait until when we are old to really get the resources? Because for us, we want to own our failures and we want to own our process. So maybe it's about time something is done about it to really support people of our level, because otherwise it's killing our agency. And I felt it slowly. So I really didn't want my agency to be killed, you know, as well as many other young people out there. And I thought maybe speaking about it and the right people hears about it, something is going to be done. Maybe I might not benefit, but people who are coming after me will benefit out of it. So it was written out of personal experience, but also out of experience of other fellow young women leaders in the spaces. And the struggle is the same, but we are all like, you know, tunalilia moyoni, we are like hurting inside and we don't know what to do. So then it was like, at least let's talk about it. If something is done, fine. If it's not, but at least we were able to express ourselves rather than just, you know, dwelling into pain and just hiding behind. So that was the reason why I wrote that letter.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure like you have held the voices of many people. I've heard it when I'm working with different organizations and consulting. Everybody's asking the same questions. What is happening? What are we doing wrong? How long do we have to wait? I want to ask Dedo, what have you, is this like a similar experience in other African countries? Is there a specific problem that is happening specifically in Tanzania with the youth in Tanzania that are hindering things like fundraising and other things?
What a big question. I wouldn't say that the problem is particular to Tanzania. This is representation of what happens around the continent. There is a status quo in who gets the funding, in who gives the funding. I really resonate and empathize with everything that Lydia said. As just a personal story, when I started my journey in philanthropy, I started my own organization that was working to serve entrepreneurs and visionaries in Burundi. It was really hard to fundraise. So I took it personally, said, oh, maybe it's the lack of experience and yada, 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 yada. I applied for an international fellowship. And with that international fellowship, I was placed with a smaller organization, which I was in charge of fundraising for, could not raise a penny. And then over time, within 6 months, I moved from a smaller local organization to work for an international organization under the same umbrella of this international fellowship. And within 2 months, I was raising millions. And then I realized that then the problem is not me. The problem is that who I am, where I'm from, and the perception precedes me and become the screen through which I'm seen. As a bit of background on myself as well, I'm a Burundian, grew up between the south of France and the US. If I introduce myself as French or American background, I have seen how my currency fluctuates versus when I'm introducing myself as a Burundian. So all these things in Tanzania, in East Africa, Southern Africa, Western Africa are the same. There's a status quo in how funding is structured, in how investments are structured, starting from the teams of institutions that give grants, that use the same bias that they have, the same bias that are extremely colonial of where the value is at. So with this, I wanted to tell everyone who's watching and who's going to be watching in the future that the problem is not us. The problem is in how the sector looks at us, which is the reason why we have to salute and encourage initiatives like Lydia of taking advocacy through its horns. We're really speaking the truth of the power and really calling the spade a spade. As on the other hand, which I think my colleague Caroline is going to talk about, how do we build systems and processes that support our best leaders, visionaries, change makers, innovators to really succeed, help them hack the system on one hand. I don't know if I'm the one who dropped, but everyone seems to be.
We're here. I don't know.
I am the one whose internet is a bit of an issue. My internet is acting like it's 7 p.m. already.
Well, we'll step in for you. Give us a sign.
Thank you so much. And yes, I absolutely agree that one of the things that I noticed even previously when I was working with an organization that was a partner with Siegel Foundation, is that there is a huge difference in how Siegel approaches fundraising, Siegel approaches their partner, and the way you are giving fundraising a different narrative in the country and where you guys are based. I know several organizations who are still trying to get in touch and get in connection with that, but they're still struggling with some of the skills that are, and then some of the things that Siegel is looking for and other partners are looking for. You are obviously a lot more understanding than some people, but what are some of those really strong status quo, mundane stuff that fundraisers are usually seeking of from young leaders such as Lydia and other organizations in Africa? What is, like, just apart from who we are and our backgrounds and everything?
Who is the question directed to me?
It can be you, it can be Carol.
I will say one thing pretty quickly before we get into some of the things that the fundraisers need to know. One, the philanthropic sector itself needs work. Mm-hmm. One, it has to be diverse. It has to be really inclusive. For a very long time, there are not so many foundations like Siegel Family Foundation that are going to hire people who have the experience, the lived experience of the places where they're funding. Because, you know, who you are influences decisions that you're going to make. That's one. The second, we have to sort of understand the whole infrastructure of funding, that it was initially built after the colonial era. Folks who worked for the colonial administration are the ones who got invited to design the development sector that we have now. So that's one of the biggest problems that we need to start solving. There are certainly things that we need to do ourselves as visionaries and leaders, but I will let my colleagues on this call as well pitch in. But I thought that it was something really important as a nuance to put out so that we start taking off the pressure off of ourselves, that the success that we get is uniquely linked to our ability.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dedo, for providing like that really awesome sort of like, you know, historical background. Because sometimes when these things are happening, they're not sort of like, you know, happening out of the blue. But I remember one day in our Super Unplugged session, we were just having a chat, like that's the reality. But again, as social entrepreneurs, as innovators, as change makers, how are we navigating that space? Because the reality is still over 97% of the funding that comes for aid in Africa goes to either INGOs or big bilateral funding, and this does not trickle down to, like, you know, leaders like Lydia, yourself, who is in early stage, and specifically here we even spoke about youth. And I think, as Dedo mentioned, sometimes being young, being early stage, committed to your, you may say like, you know, is this something wrong with me? No. But then how do we prepare ourselves to play the game? Change the game. I think our own work is that after we realized that the space, it's going to take a while until when we advocate and we have much more fair level playing field. What we did as Single Family Foundation was to also look at the sector and the ecosystem. What are some of the gaps and what can we sort of like, you know, support to bring more investment equity in the sector? Yes, with being an early stage organization, look at an organization as a child. Like there's a part where you're forming, you're creating formation, introducing, passionate with a vision. And you know how children are limited on what they want and what they wish. And then slowly sort of like, you know, grow to a certain level. And as an organization grows, like, you know, needs grow. Sometimes when you're fundraising and you need to get to a certain level, there's some things that you as an organization also need to have, which can sort of like, you know, enable you receive and access funding. So I think what we did is we came up with different ways to support local leaders through different programs with the purpose of providing first long-term investment and much more handholding. That is like, you know, high level support, not only capacitates the visionaries in terms of finances, but exactly what our colleague, our brother in the sector, what's his name? I'm trying to remember. He spoke very well during the opening event for the Tanzania Youth Digital Summit. Mtabe. Something that Mtabe shared is that the reality is that if you put a shark in a tank, and then if you put it in the ocean, the outcomes are very different. And therefore, we are passionate. We want to do this. But sometimes is that we are so much limited in the tank and something needs to happen to move this shark from the tank into the ocean. And what are some of those ways? And some of the ways, like, you know, really supporting our partners with practical tools and skills. Because beyond your passion and your dedication and your need to make change, you need to have a vehicle that can actually receive and a team and be able to fundraise and ability to communicate beyond passion in a way that whatever is out there in the sector can do. Reality is most of the money lies with most of the bilateral funders, like, you know, the big guys. We have very few Single Family Foundation with sort of like, you know, unusual and very intelligent investors. Unfortunately, this world is not really opening up for a lot of that, but we purpose to sort of like, you know, continue to advocate and have many more. But if our current space is filled with bilateral funding, we need to learn their language and learn their dance and learn how to sort of like, you know, tango with that dance. And how does that happen? We need to realize that beyond the vision and the mission, yes, there's some other uncool stuff that you need to build so that they can give you more leverage with the funding. So sometimes one thing which I'll say, we can hate and then we can rant, but second, make friends, build relations, and you know what, do some like, you know, unplugged session. What is it that we are missing? Because one thing, it's very easy to blame the sector, especially it's very easy to blame the donor societies. We're doing our advocacy, but maybe it's time to also ask for feedback because different funders come to you at different stage and solving different needs. So when we ask and get feedback, potentially we may be able to sort of like, get some practical tools and also that learn the language that they're talking, but at the same time, be aware of like, other unusual funders, the type of SIGO, and I think we have a lot of other private philanthropy and foundations, which are much more bolder, which are much more excited with taking risks and which are much more open to support like, early stage youth-led and all these like, creative and innovative ways. So it's very hard to erase the past. So as we are making the journey towards a more equitable ecosystem, it is also very important for us to survive. And how we do that is by acquiring tools, skills, and networks or spaces and forums, which can give us necessary skills on like, navigating what is currently existing. So I will rest there and I think we can continue.
Thank you so much. That was so much. Okay, sorry, I've had to also relocate myself for better internet. This 6 a.m. stuff. Thank you so much, Carol. I think, yeah, I totally agree. There's a part where I really, it really touched me in the part, and that's the part where you talked about it being a two-way thing, right? There are times where the problem is there. There are times where, let's be real, the problem is right here. There are times where we're facing opportunities, but we're not ready for them. There's a gap. Do you think this is something that we can be real and open about as Tanzanian youth? For example, with Lydia, who I'm very sure that she's had tough times trying to sort out like all the paperwork and etc. But there are realistic gaps. What are these gaps that we need to be very real about as Tanzanians? Either Dedo or Caroline can answer this question.
Can you repeat the question? I dropped off a little bit.
Oh, that's fine. So we're just talking about how it's a reality that there are issues, but sometimes we have gaps here in Tanzania with the youth that are coming up with organizations. There's gaps that we are being told, but we're not listening to maybe, or we're not understanding. Can you just be realistic about the gaps that we are facing in Tanzania that are leading to some of these parts? What can we do on our part? Because these are the things that I think we can change fastest.
I don't know how to not sound very old in talking about young innovators, but one of the problem in our sector often, this is not only for young people, it's that people aren't really reaching out to do their due diligence, to have a really clear landscape analysis to say, here is my contribution, here is how it fits in all these other things that are doing, here are my competitor, here are my collaborator, and etc. Because truth of the matter, whoever you're gonna go speaking to for fundraising have had access to all that. Those are people who are coming to them as well. So to look smart, to look like you know what you're talking about, to look like you understand the makeup of the problem, it's really, really important to name drop other players in the space that you're playing in. That's one. The second that you talked about, and that I think also my colleague Caroline talked about, is if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. That's how it works. It's really hard to go to funders and then start asking for money. If you start asking for feedback and etc., then you're building that contact and that trust that's gonna unlock money. And I think one other thing is really studying our models. I can't remember who said this, have passion is not enough. When you build an engine and when you build a model around what you're doing, you're taking it away from the cutesy charity thing to something that is viable, that is worth investing in. So there are techniques to how we want to change the world that we have to adopt. on one hand is in being really sophisticated around the problem that we're solving and clarity around how we solve it. Once we're able to share that, then it's easy to start getting into questions of value, because there are tons of people who have programs, services, and innovations that we're putting out. People are going to buy your values. They're going to buy who you are. So it's important to really insist on why you do what you do, because that's where makes the change between whoever the funder, the investor, going to be speaking to as well. Building a strong engine, building trust, and building a pipeline. Oftentimes we speak to one funder and then we think that is enough. No, when you meet one funder, you have spoken to one funder. You can make a generalization, but there are tricks and there are hacks, there are sciences around this that new entrepreneurs and social leaders could start thinking about. There are different types of funders. There are private foundations that are really easy to work with. You build relationships with them. They're going to fund you, not as big as bilaterals will do, but they will do it over a long period of time. And they might introduce you to other funders as well. There are corporations who are looking for something that is shiny to associate themselves with, and who are going to give some, because there's something that is mirror to what they're doing. And the way you speak to them is also very, very different. Institutional donors and bilaterals who do open grant funding that CK Caroline has talked about. All this diversity of funders require a specific way to talk to them and what you're selling. So yes, it's also very important, beyond how sophisticated you are, your program, your team, your vision, and etc., to understand the types of funders that are out there and the language that you need to put forward to talk to them. I talked about values. Values are really important. Most of them are not looking for perfection, but they're looking for potential. And it's really good to be open and honest around the challenges that you're facing, because that's how they can come in and to fill in those gaps, rather than presenting everything that we do as perfect. To really, really, really be honest around that. What else? Well, the last thing that I want to talk about that we can't insist on enough is the rule of thirds. People think that you're going to have one funder who's going to fill all your needs. You have to be really smart and think about how you diversify your funding streams. Who are your private foundations and funders that you have who are going to be in with you for a very long time, but giving small funding? Who are the institutional donors, bilaterals who are going to give big funding for a small period of time, that when they're gone, the private philanthropy can continue to fray the cost? And who are the other individual donors or corporations that you want to bring in, so that you have a really healthy and diverse funding streams. The process of creating change is as sophisticated as the science behind raising funding. Raising funding is not only going to allow you to build a strong organization, but it's going to really determine the height of your own vision. So it's really important to merge the two. What we do and how we do it is also very important.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love that the fact you've put it very, in a way that is easily memorable. Engine, trust, pipeline, and really understanding, like what you're doing and reaching out and diversifying. I would say one of the things that a lot of people do have is the generalization part. Meeting one bad person does not mean they're all bad. I think we've realized this on so many ways, in so many levels. No one is the same. They're all very tailored to their own beliefs and values. And I think it's also important to really do your research in that. There's no point in going to a foundation that is doing sanitary pads and you're doing technology. As we like to say here, lugha mgongano, right? You're not going to understand each other. There's going to be different values. There's going to be different directions, and it doesn't make them bad. But then now we've heard a lot about what sort of ideas. I want to go back to Lydia. She's still really, really adamant about how things do need to change, and she made a wonderful list on like how they need to actively support and actively actively share how to be more attractive, I guess, to funders. Lydia, what are some of the things that you would say in Tanzania that have been done but are not being realized, or vice versa? What are things that are like now are being realized but had not been realized before, and other people, not just yourself, but other young leaders, other young women in the same sector, how can they also take opportunities of some of this information we're receiving right now? Because it's a lot of us can be like, I mean, we've tried and it's failed, but now we've just heard there's different relationships, there's an engine, etc.
I think they've explained very clear, and actually I got a lot of response from different people on what they think could be done to help us, the youth-led, the young women-led, to really fit in the space and being able to, get resources, things like, create partnerships, network, and et cetera, and all those, like, we are taking into account and really say, like, we really need to do, but also just learning how somebody used the word, I think, a week ago, funding politics. There's a politics of it, which you need to learn how to navigate around. Yes. And I think those are still new for the most of young people to really understand how to do it. So maybe sessions like this would be helpful to really understand, getting out there. But my point on this letter is like, if this is what I really wish to happen, if the world is really moving into a more creative and innovative way, and we see how the funding models have been for a long time, I think it's about time we really think about evolving our funding models to really fit on how, because even now we have all this agenda, generation equality, Agenda 2030, telling young people, do this, do that. All these were not there back then. So probably it was easy for all the funding models to be like that because young people were maybe acting differently, or the priority were not the same. But now the priority on like young people to try out things. So maybe we really need to evolve on our funding models to really fit into what where the world is right now, but also to what we are telling young people, what we are being told. So we are doing what we're being told, but then when you go back to the table, you're told, these are the ways to go and get resources. So there's like, I would say, they're like a dual communication, So if we are really aligning and we are moving, maybe it's about time we really start thinking of how we evolve in these funding models, so that it becomes more inclusive, to where we are and the people that we are working on. But also, I think they have said, was it Dedo? He explained it's very important for you to have, a diverse portfolio of funders, the ones who are doing this, the other one are doing this, because you cannot have one who's doing all of that. But my point for me, I think if you're a funder that your focus is about youth-led and young women-led in general, I think this is something that to really, really think about it differently. Why? Because we see more initiatives that are being done. If you're having initiatives around training young people, you're having initiatives around mentoring young people, you're having initiatives around maybe publicizing young people's work and etc. and etc. There's so many good things that different organizations are doing for young people. But as they say in the cycle, if you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and then step 6 is missing, then the cycle is incomplete. So there's nothing wrong with funders training, mentoring, or giving support to young people in terms of publicity, but we are stuck somewhere. So what are we doing to really get us out of that space where we are stuck at that particular time? And by saying that, I mean, if we have the capacity, we have been trained, we've been trusted, and maybe it's about time we start thinking about trusting up with resources to at least, like what Given said in the launch, like to at least, give it a shot, try out things, maybe just have what did they say? Like you have a flexible funding that is just there for young people to just do things, support their initiatives, or support them to grow. Because one thing I'll tell you, and I think in the launch also it was shared, all these things that are around due diligence are really, really important. And as young people, we are not fighting against that. You know, what we need is we need help around how can we really improve the systems and the infrastructure that are needed to, you know, to be funded. And I tell you, like for many young women and youth led that I know are willing, but they just don't know where to start, because at the end of the day, you need resources to even have those systems. So maybe to really have a deliberate, you know, action of funding really youth-led in a way where you can start, you know, supporting their system, supporting them to grow. Of course, there are many things you need to, like, you know, take a look, you know, but I think the issue of systems, it's been there and it's continuing being there, and we will still be there talking about it. So what do we do now to really help us to, like, you know, jump to the other side when it comes to these systems? How are you helping us to really putting up policies, putting up right people, you know, what do we do about it? Because we read, but we find yourself, you don't even have the resources that will help you put the right systems. So here we go again, maybe if you're really focusing on us, maybe having a deliberate action of really working with us, maybe a flexible funding to really support organizational growth for us to try things and et cetera and et cetera. So I really like the responses, and I think they're really helpful. We will work on it. And I also like the other side to start thinking on how we can work together better. And also, you know, our partnerships, you know, there are partnerships that are long-term, partnerships that are short-term. But if you're in a capacity to have long-term partnership with young people where you can invest in their organizational growth, do it. Because we see them doing projects, doing programs, and they're doing amazing. Maybe a little bit of support will really make them grow faster and fit in the space. So yeah, I think that would be all for me.
Can I jump in quickly? Add one or two things to what Lydia just said. One, it's really important to start, you know, Caroline, my colleague, likes to say we stand on the shoulders of the giant. Younger organizations, one of the things that they don't do very well that actually can really catapult them to success is in working with those who came before them. Who else in the space that you can work with to tell you, here are different funders that you could look into. Actually, I'll be happy to make introduction to this, that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Second, how do we cheat sheet on how we build our teams, our advisory committee, our board, to be the people who actually have access to that funders landscape? Having good ideas is not enough. We need to start figuring out what are the ways we cheat sheet through how we build our teams, our boards, and etc., through how we invest in our fundraising. Because one of the questions that I like to ask myself to the folks in my portfolio is how much percentage of your budget goes to fundraising, you know? Money creates money, but oftentimes local organizations are going to throw all the money into programs and then go fundraise really struggling. So two things that are important: who are the giants that you're standing on shoulders? And second, how do you build your teams in a way that helps you cut down the criticism that you're young, that you don't know what you're doing? Because probably it's true that young people have good ideas, but it's really hard to drive an engine, right? It's those sort of nuances that are, it's like a hard truth and pill to swallow, but we gotta do what we gotta do to do the things that we want to do.
What I'm hearing today, because Caroline also wants to say, so I can see her, she's been messing with her hair, she's just like, I'm ready, throw. What I'm hearing is that there are a lot of young people with great ideas, and they have structures that they are building, and they're unable to build the structures to formulate strong ones because they lack the knowledge and the skills to engage with funders, to engage with partners, and etc. What I'm hearing from Dedo, though, is that money does not come for free. And it's a strong point. It's something that we do not think of. I think there's like a sense of like, and I don't want to sound rude because I'm a consultant. I work with a lot of NGOs that are struggling with fundraising, and I go in and they're like, we want to help, right? But like, we don't have a budget for it. I'm like, well, that's the problem to begin with. It's a very hard truth to swallow. So yeah, I'm hearing a lot of like, it's a very interesting talk. Caroline, I know you have something to say. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ellen. Actually, just a couple of points. And this route I'm taking, since it's almost 6, it's pure Makavu life, because I'm born, raised, I've been in the ecosystem. It has raised me. I've been part of this story, and I know a couple of mistakes that I made myself, and I think I would like to sort of highlight them and see what we can do about. First, that you mentioned very well, standing on the shoulders of giants. I think in town, we have a tendency, there's that old gen and then new generation. So the new generation is us who know innovation and apps and platforms, and the SDGs.
We've got the words to the T. We are talking energy, we are talking innovation.
Instagram, and we are killing it. You get?
I get.
And then anytime there's a call, there's an event from some of the biggest, let's say, movements who have been in the space for over 20 years, keeping a lot of money of bilateral funders and supporting all organizations, it'll be like, hey, that network is not ours. So I'm not going to name names until when you take this offline and it's not recorded so that we can share more. But I think it's really, really, really important to foster these intergenerational conversations. Trust me, they may be, they have the networks, they have the trust. And if we're able to, as much as we bring the energy and the innovation and the newness and freshness, but it's very important, again, to recognize and sort of take advantage of the opportunities that we have with the giants who have done this before us. Remember, the boldness we are having today is because someone did a lot of work which is enabling us. So I think that I just want to put to say that again. But then another Kavu life, like kwetu kwetu, this is where the English disappears. Human expectations, my people. Expectations in what sense? Expectations in, because for me, my core work is meeting potential partners, is meeting young people who are doing great things out there. And for me, my KPI is basically to get as many people as possible into our portfolio, because what we really want to do is open the community. But sometimes it's hard. You know why it's hard? Because there's a bit of being so removed, like proximity between the solution and the energy and the people. I'll give an example of a young, lovely lady, very energetic I met, and she is very many consortiums, which I'm very proud of her, all consortiums for SRH and women and youth and all that stuff. And she got the passion in a certain region, and she started implementing something with schools and all that stuff. But then since she got very famous online, I think she moved somewhere, and now she's doing these parachuting programs in different places. And then when they come to fundraise, they have the most beautiful printed reports. Like our comms and marketing for the young generation is not missing. But then they'll tell you about my youth. I'm like, oh, I love this. So who are your youth? I was in Bear for 1 week, and then I went to Kiela. I went to Kigoma for 2 days, and then I was in Arusha for 7 days, and then I was in Pemba for 2 nights, this INGO, and therefore I'm bringing a report of my youth, my Tanzanian youth. So my question, these places are so diverse. Like, how do you connect your interventions with the young people? So proximity. And proximity speaks about your commitment. Also proximity also highlights that as a change maker, you really sort of understand the community you're working with. It comes to setting expectations I think we come from a background where we're doing a lot of, right-based approach to programming. And I think this has been sort of it's the path which has been created, where at the onset of setting up an organization, after you coming up with a portal or with a solution, you want in your second year to have the Ministry of Health or Ministry of Education or Ministry of anything to change everything. And the moment they're not responding it nicely and all that stuff, like they act like dream killers. You get what I've seen over the course of years is that every intervention actually has room to influence policy. But if you're working with the governments and you want to know sort of like, high level, it is very important to show and tell, meaning like, really committing and doing it very well to an extent. You don't get frustrated maybe too early into the intervention where you haven't been able, because we have seen a lot of sisters in the sector who it has taken a couple of years. So it needs also patience to sort of like, be able either to raise more money or even to get like, government onboarding. So, and I know it can be so frustrating because my idea is fresh and it's new and it's innovative and it's creative and it is taking a couple of SDGs really, really, really well. Like, why are these people getting it? So yeah, so that was sort of like, an unplugged version of what I've seen and some of the mistakes I made myself, and I see them continue happening. That we remove ourselves from the reality, we remove ourselves from either people or communities which are benefiting from the work, because I think there's a high vibe of like, being unique, being an outlier. So I think let's start with the basic, and I'll end with what Dedo shared with me one day. Sometimes you need to do what needs to be done, and that will help you get to a place where you can do what you want to do. It's a journey.
I think the best example of that statement is Diamond, where he was singing all these songs for people, and now he's singing whatever he wants to sing. Huh? We're going back. We're unplugging today. We're unplugging today, people. This is how it's going to be done. Thank you so much. Dedo, I saw you wrote, I'm curious what has been the bottlenecks of young people here today to bring in resources to the organizations. And I've noticed, because I'm also, I'm a bit nosy, I'm looking into these participants who are here, people who've attended. I'm seeing Rebecca Gyumi. I wonder if she has anything to comment on these things. I wonder if Rebecca can speak, if she's been able to, she can come in. Hello, Rebecca. How are you today? I'm sorry, yeah, I'm gonna start picking on people because this is getting too exciting for me. I need more people in this audience because I'm here sipping, I'm here like, preach. I wanna hear all this. Welcome, Rebecca.
Okay, to be honest, I just joined in to listen. Ellen, come on. How are you doing? Come on, Ellen.
What are you curious about, Rebecca?
There are no rules. There are no rules. All these rules are for breaking.
Because I
What
saw
have you heard or what are you curious about?
Because I saw it's unplugged session and I'm on leave. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use my 1 hour to just listen. And then, okay, here I am on the spot.
Rebecca, putting in the spot, because I know something that you've done very well is sort of like, connecting that generational connection, like where I see you partner and, be part of the alliance of like, other women-led and also women rights organization as you're building yours. What inspired you, maybe, and what are some of the benefits that you're reaping from such networks?
Okay, wow. I think first of all is to really acknowledge the urgency and the voice of Lydia. I think it's really really she's sort of like the voice that we have wanted to hear for a long time, because, being in this space in the ecosystem, she has really spoken on our realities. And I hear you, Caro and Dedo, on the realities of funding and how the funding ecosystem actually works. But I would just like to say, before I contribute a little bit on the question that you have asked me, I think there are a number of issues that we need to do to really make sure that, the funding ecosystem is responding to the needs, to the urgency, to the voice of the youth and the young women-led organization. Because clearly, I think what we are trying to say, and is to agree with Lydia, the current model does not work for us. And it's not because of, all these other issues that, clearly Dedo and Caro, you have spoken about, which I also agree, there might be some extent where, some of the youth and women-led organizations are still grappling with these facts, but the ecosystem is not really placed in a manner that we are able to equally access it and be transparent enough for us to be able to know what type of fundings are available, and this kind of fundings are going, to who and how can we really navigate. So the politics that we are talking about is not even politics of, knowing who is in there, but really it has really become so ingrained that to be able to break that, I don't know what it will take. Maybe it will take, maybe we need voices like Lydia, the Lydia's voices. We have many of people like Lydia coming out and really challenging the system, because I think it has come to the point where we really need to shake the system and shake things up for it to be able to change. So I think just to echo what Lydia was saying, but coming back to your question, Caro, I would say there are a number of things that maybe we need to also work on, and that can be, of course, looking at, some of the established and, networks that are already existing in the ecosystem that will be able maybe to introduce us in spaces where sometimes if I go as Lydia or as Rebecca with the organizations that we are leading, it might be difficult to gain that trust. And I think at the organization that I'm leading, I would say we have been trying to do that, and still I would say it's not easy. And it should not really be, I think, because if we're also to say everyone should go through that path, Caroline, how many youth-led organization or young women-led organization will be able to, navigate and reach to those people and be able to achieve their potential? Because it's also not that easy. I think what we need to have is really leveling the field where everybody will be able to access the resources, or at least if not accessing, we'll be able to know how to do, what to do to be able to access those resources. Because if the field is not leveled, then I think we'll just be continue to create those layers and layers of, you need to know, sort of like the know who, and, you need to, be able to be in the certain network and know somebody to be able to penetrate, which I think is really, can be a way to do, but maybe might not be an easy way for every youth-led or young women-led organization to be able to go through those channels to access resources. But generally, I would just end, I think, by saying, I think we really need to restructure the funding ecosystem, and not just in the NGO. I think generally, even in the startups, people are talking about the same issue. We really need to restructure how funding and resources are really put into the hands of the change makers, of the innovators, so that we can have a lot of, these resources at the hands of youth, if at all we want to see rapid change and sustainable change in our community.
This is Rebecca in her holidays, on leave, people. This is her on leave, her brain like this. Rebecca, thank you so much for your input. We care and we treasure it deeply. I'm actually feeling this mood of like getting people to speak up. I saw some other people here. I saw Joseph, HDF, now called Funguo, right?
Hi, Ellen. Ellen, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joseph. How are you?
Good to see you guys. And Ellen, you will pay for that because I wasn't prepared to speak. And I made it very clear to Carol and to Diana. So get prepared to buy a drink for that.
Those are the punishments that we really, really, really like.
Great. So what do you want me to say? I mean, one, I don't have a job, so I'm not in Fungu. I'm no longer in HDIF, so I'm on the street. So if you have a position, please let me know in your consultancy, right? But, yeah, I think I can echo what everybody's saying. And I think I will be lying if I say I want to add on anything. I kind of understand the frustration from Lydia's side, from everybody. And I also appreciate the kind of tips that Dido has provided. Well, there is a challenge. I think there is a systemic challenge that we are having to deal with. But one of the ways of dealing with that is exactly this kind of space where actually people get to hear exactly what's happening. It's not that people haven't been saying that, but I think there are a few spaces where you actually get people who are on the other side of the funding to sit together with their would-be beneficiaries to exactly understand what needs to be done to change. It's not easy, if you ask me, especially if you are dealing with these entrenched, large, traditional kind of funding organizations, because for the word to actually penetrate, to go to at the top of the decision-making bodies, it's not easy. But I think it's important to keep on shouting until the voice can actually reach that far. What I keep on telling, I totally agree, because I have been on this funding side for quite a while now, and it's kind of that I got used to being bashed, which I totally appreciate, because getting that kind of feedback now helps you improve on what you do next. And I can actually tell you that we have been kind of improving as far as HDF was concerned. There have been a lot of criticism about probably how HDF, just to kind of mention how HDF probably was operated. But what I keep on telling people is you have to understand what you are dealing with. When you're dealing with a development project, which have been designed by a development partner to tick some key boxes, and you are dealing with someone who also has to go back and report to their taxpayers, there is very little flexibility. So what I've been saying is that you have to go back and understand exactly what does this program want. Do I fit into what they're trying to fund? Or if they don't, is there any way that I can actually go and influence so they can actually deviate a little bit to probably fund what is relevant that we are trying to do? I think that's the only way, because at the end of the day, because initially before I came into the funding, I was also asking myself the same question. But when you get to that side, okay, there is for instance, I've been working with the British government for quite a while, and you know how loud their media is. And if you know anything, I think the development agencies in the UK are so much afraid of the media. So they're very cautious to deal with anything which is going to get to be misinterpreted with the media. So I think we also have to understand. But having said that, it's not that we don't have the right to kind of criticize, because that's also how they learn. We have to make sure that, okay, we totally understand. But when you are working on this terrain, I think these are the things that we think matter. Sometimes I think they get criticized by, let's say, if you are dealing with the young organizations, and you are bringing in a top 4 kind of auditing firm to do the due diligence. Come on, what are you looking for? Because you know for sure that the kind of systems you are looking for are not there. So it's just a matter of telling, you know what, we cannot fund you because you don't tick these boxes, rather than actually wasting their time. So those are the kind of learning point that we also get from these kind of interactions that we have with beneficiaries. To understand the kind of circumstance you are working in. And sometimes we also make a mistake of like, okay, you're in Tanzania, you assume that the Tanzanian organization is established as a Kenyan organization. So you come up with a one-size-fits-all kind of metric, and you want everybody to kind of, comply with that. So there are those kind of things, but I think there are changes. The changes are not as fast as we would like to see, but definitely I think there are quite some changes as compared. I mean, actually I have been in this since 2014, looking at where we started from 2014 to where we are right now. There have been quite some changes, but it's not, it's not fast enough that we'd like to see. So let's keep on engaging. And whenever we have space like this, let's make sure that at least we have those people that we know, if they hear the kind of feedback like this, they are going to go back and reflect on it. And whenever they are designing another program, they will have to think about what they have heard on this kind of interaction. So that's all I had to say. I mean, everything that's being said is relevant, and it's very timely. But there is no end point to it. We have to continue kind of doing what we need to do, but also educating the funders as well. Asante.
See, I tell you, this panel is not just made from the people who came here from the beginning. This is all gold. Joseph, I want to hire you as my mentor.
I'm not very cheap, you know.
To stand on your shoulders, be affordable and accessible.
Okay, affordable is it's also
Caroline. At least Caroline has spoken for me.
Caroline is a donor. She works for a private foundation, you know, so she can make things happen. So don't talk to her, and she can facilitate me being your mentor.
It has all been settled. It's done. I actually remember one of the first times I had to go present to a donor, and it was actually HDF, and Joseph was there and his team. And I remember one of my questions was like, okay, so what does the paperwork look like? Because I was the sole person who was capable of filling up that paperwork. And I remember they told me I could sketch my idea. So this is firsthand experience of when someone sees that the idea is worth investing in. What I've noticed is that they will take leverages, they will do things to make it happen. But it's the partnership and the relationship that you make from the first impression that you're making all the way to the work. There's a structure. I also believe that some of the funders that we're actually dealing with that are not responding, they are not from this context. And I think that's why we're so glad to have people like Caroline and Dedo, who's had to leave, but he was here. We've had HDF, we've had people like Joseph, we've had so many. We have NIA Foundation now that is also here. People who are able to further relate to the struggles, the culture, the systems that we have in Tanzania. I think it's one of the things that has really, really helped some of these places to grow. I wanted to, there was a question here by someone, a certain Paul, just looking through the chats, to discuss from the policy maker's angle, how governments also sometimes present constraints on youth-led projects. I wonder, Paul, is Paul still here? I would really want him to expound on this question, or maybe explain from his experience where he's coming from with this question, because we're unplugging today. We're trying to unpack it all. I wonder if we can have him join the panel. But yes, that was a very interesting question for me.
Already can ship items that exceed 100 million from US. So I've tried checking this, because this is too little. But you can ship from UK. From UK we can.
Paul, I think go ahead, you can ask. I think Ellen is present.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, from my question, I was looking at from the policymakers' angle, because Kwanzaa, let me start by, just thanking all of you for such an informative conversation that's, expounded a lot of interesting ideas towards how we as young people can leverage on funding opportunities from donors. And one constraint that I've noticed, even from our side as a foundation, we usually have programs prepared, and whether we have funding or not, but sometimes there are challenges that are presented by local government, in terms of accessing the original data to assist these communities that we're working with, or sometimes you have challenges of bureaucracy where top level is is kind of backlashing with lower level government officials, and especially when you're a youth-led organization, sometimes it's challenging. How? Because young people, we are still not taken seriously at the table. So it presents also a lot of problematic challenges to us when we are trying to, with the best of our abilities, blood, sweat, and tears, to ensure that programs stay sustainable, and and we're helping the marginalized communities, women and youth who are left behind. But then you have such challenges in government who, in lower level, who are taking things slow and maybe sometimes not delivering according to time, which can also in turn not be productive to an organization. It sometimes, and I think someone also briefed about it, that sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but still I find it challenging when you're a youth organization and you're trying to make things happen and then it doesn't happen in time. Then maybe you want to approach a donor and show the donor that you're doing something, with maybe the budgets they've allocated, or maybe the fundraising, the fundings you've raised to do these projects, and then you have the other side of the spectrum that's not really supportive. So I think that's also one of the challenges. Maybe that's why we are not trusted as youth organizations, because we are not able to get things done on time. And it's not that we are the problem. It's actually the other side now, the officiators, the people who have, the people who grant us the space to work are not supportive. I don't know if you guys have come across it.
Caroline is nodding her head. Take over, Caroline.
No, I hear Paul. I hear Paul. I hear Lydia. As I mentioned, as a social entrepreneur myself, as a founder at some point, having walked the talk, I think the frustration is there. But since I see we're very limited with time, and I see that Tanzania is here, I am curious, what would be the best way to sort of take this forward? Because one thing which I realized, building relations or partnerships with either the government or funders, it is a science and it is an art. Therefore, as you say, there must be spaces where we exchange information. Perhaps if we convene another event space, maybe with DOT, and people who are here in the later days, where people can share what has worked. Because one thing I've learned is that depending on how we are framing the questions, if we look for challenges, of course, they're unlimited, potentially the same 20 years back. But also if we create a space where, again, social entrepreneurs or NGOs or organizations or youth come together and also share what works, I think that could be, again, another way. Because I've been going around asking entrepreneurs, what programs, what networks, what are some of the things which made it, that made you successful to be where you are. And I realized, there are some tips and tools which are out there amongst ourselves as implementers, as youth-led organizations. Maybe what we can do is create a convening and highlight what are some of those tricks that we used. What I'm proposing is, if we are creating that conversation, Single Family Foundation will be very happy to be part of making it happen in terms of whatever needs to happen for the convening to happen. That's first and foremost, I'm putting it out. And we are very open, because I believe there's so much power in co-creation, and there's so much information which you can do. At SIGO, one of our motto is building a community of creative collaborators, where we believe that the challenge that Lydia is facing today is the challenge maybe Rebecca faced 4 years back. So when these people come together, there's a bit of sharing which can give them practical tools and some ways. So I commit upon your call to further this conversation. But then also, Lydia as well, I'm putting you on a spot. One thing about private family foundations like ours is we're very flexible. We love collaborating and we do not care where that comes from. And we have little to minimum restrictions on how we can make it happen. Ourselves, we run a couple of programs. We're running something called Social Impact Incubator, piloting it for the first year in Tanzania. And you should have seen my face when Given was talking. Because when you're putting up these programs and say like we're building capacity, people are like, no, we have the capacity. It's so tiring. We feel like we have the capacity, so we don't want any more. But it was nice to hear from implementers after doing a scan to realize that capacity to innovate and put up a program idea and a theory of change needs a bit more capacitating on how to put programs, how to build teams, how to fundraise, how to communicate, how to document it, how to reach out there. So through the Social Impact Incubator, we provide that space. And what we can do is that enough? No. If I ask you what would be the solution, like, you know, how can we, is there something that we can create which is outside our own network? Because most of the things, of course, we provide to our grantees or partners who have enrolled. I just got an idea. Maybe what we need is, you know, co-creating a couple of like, you know, master classes, which can be virtual, which can be covering like, you know, all these topics. But then who should inform that should be the young people themselves. Like if we come, like, you know, these are some of the capacities or these are some of the gaps which we have identified a lot. Because most of the time when we identify as a funder, it's very easy for the information to come through as you're patronizing and you're prescribing solutions. So I think this is an open invitation. Lydia and like, you know, people are here, maybe through follow-up events, to identify like, you know, what workshops would be maybe necessary, which are not happening in the space. And someone mentioned if we can provide a pro bono workshop on system strengthening. I think this is definitely something that we can do, and we, I think, promise to sort of like, you know, find ways to co-create, because yeah, we can't dwell in the challenges. We acknowledge them, it's fine, but I think also like we really need to move very fast and sort of like, you know, finding what are the solutions and what is within our ability to make it better. I know the wish is always to move from 1 to 100, but sometimes we acknowledge 1 to 5. And 7 to 8. The thing is like we should not stop moving. And as Single Family Foundation, why we came through to support Tanzania Youth Digital Summit was to be able to sort of like, you know, hear a lot of these voices and build our own network and let you know that as unusual as foundations like SIGO are, because we're very few in the space, but we do exist. And we would like to listen, would like to co-create, and would like to be more solution oriented than creating spaces to rant and be frustrated. That is the end of my unplug.
Oh my God, as the bundle of English has ended, this is the rich uncle, the wedding, throwing me and
over to you, Ellen.
Is doing right now. If not, guys, this has been great. Like, I can't believe the amount of gold, platinum, silver, all these gems that are being dropped on us today. It has been a lot. I'm actually overwhelmed with how much information, conversation, discussions, heated topics sort of touched on the surface. I still believe we're still surface level, but we need more of these things. We need them to happen more. And from what I'm seeing, we are going to get them. Now, we have a few minutes left, and always, it's never nice to end these things, but you know, we need to like unplug physically from our chairs soon. So before we end, I would like for the next couple of minutes, just one minute for everyone in the, everyone else, all the participants who are here today, everyone who has joined us, thank you so much for your time. We recognize how much time you've given and the concentration to the conversation. what have you taken away with you today? What is it that has really blown your mind, that is gonna stick with you, a promise that you have heard? Just like in the chat, just write it down. But this is how we're going to do it. You're going to reflect on what you have learned today. You're going to reflect on something that has touched you. You're going to reflect on one of those moments that you're living with today. And then I'm going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when I say 1, everyone is going to hit send. And we're going to have a storm of thoughts just bombarding our chat box, okay? So it's just a minute of us reflecting, writing it down, and leaving our finger on that send button. And when I count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we all send, and it just becomes a storm of thoughts, like all we have had today to have. So yeah, let's just do that for a minute. And me personally, I don't even have some music here to do it, but I can try look for something to put as people are thinking.
On my life to matter, I am afraid I have no purpose here. I watch the news on TV, abandon myself daily. I am afraid to let you see the real me. When it falls, when it falls, paranoid me. The rain it falls, when it falls. Soaring the seas of love and hope, love and hope. We don't have to stay stuck in the weeds. We're going to change our mind. 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 We're going to change
I hope everybody is ready. I want to start counting. Have we all got our thoughts together? I know I can see you guys. Caroline looks like she's still typing. This is going to be an entire newsletter. Hey, hey. Okay, so, Jawadi, you've gone fast, my friend. You've gone fast. Umewai, but it's okay. We're going to be counting now. So when I get to 1, we all press enter, okay? So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Woo! Yes, it worked. I'm so happy. Thank you guys so much. It has been a great unplugged session. We have unplugged, we have released. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much to DOT for organizing this, partnering with Siegel. Thank you, Carol and Dedo, who are here. Lydia, you are a star for reaching out and making that voice. We hope that more people can follow that lead, because I am seeing how things are going to be changing in the future when our voices are loud. We're hoping for unity. We're hoping for more unplugged sessions. Thank you everyone who has joined. It has been amazing. I think this now dips the end. Caroline, I know you're going straight for your real unplugged session. I see you. Okay, Daddy. Thank you so much, everybody. It has been a pleasure. Thank you to DOT again. And I hope you all have a lovely, lovely, lovely evening. Thank you so much. I think I'll just be here for one more minute in case of anything. Otherwise, thank you so much. Have a good evening, Lydia. Have a good evening, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Amen. Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Dot. And thank you, everybody. Bye.